Rochelle, or you can, yes, we have here Rochelle or Cheche. She is a marketer and mother. She has 8 years of experience in the field of marketing and currently providing services in social media management as freelancer. So she is also a positivity blogger or positivity tips, where she tells stories of God's greatness and faithfulness in her life as an avenue to be a blessing through digital platforms. So let's clap our hands and welcome Rochelle.
Okay, thank you very much, Yen, for introducing me. Thank you very much. I hope everyone is still okay. Buhay pa po ba kayo? Hindi pa po ba tayo inaantok? Okay, so tonight, let me first thank everyone for dedicating your time for this digital marketing for ministry webinar. We really praise God for your time, and this is really an affirmation that we gather today for this kind of event. So, okay, so let's start. Tonight, I'll be discussing social media marketing, and I hope you'll learn a lot from this topic. Kaparehas nung mga nauna sa akin na nag-speak. Okay, so next slide. Each one of us who doesn't know social media, right? Lahat tayo familiar with social media, and who does not have a social media account? During this pandemic, social media or the digital world has been one of the sources of our light in the midst of the darkness brought by the pandemic. So as we can see, this has been the source of our Pampa Good Vibes. We can see in TikTok different ages that they are dancing, giving some tips, inspirational videos that where we can learn from, Facebook videos, Instagram videos, and etc. etc. And even during this pandemic, the use of social media has increased a lot. And even the small businesses, the startups have veered away from the traditional marketing, but instead invested on maximizing and promoting their products and services, and of course also their platforms through the social media. So okay, so next slide. So what is social media marketing? There is a deeper meaning with that. Aside from just posting videos, just updating our friends and family where we have spent our vacation during holidays, what we are eating right now, if we are really good in dancing in the TikTok videos, etc. Social media marketing is all about connecting to your audience. So social media marketing is very useful right now for the startup businesses, for the church, for the organizations, because it helps you connect to your audience to build your brand. Either it's a business brand or your personal brand as an entrepreneur or as a freelancer as well. It also helps, or this is connecting your audience to increase sales because you're promoting your products and services as well. And then it helps you connect your audience to drive website traffic, especially if you have blogs or if you have website for your brand. Okay, so next slide. So here, I will be discussing to you the 5 core pillars of the social media marketing on what are the key components, or kumbaga, if we are cooking something, what are the key ingredients for this for the social media marketing. So how do we connect to our audience using the social media? Okay, so let me walk you through to the 5 core pillars of the social media marketing: game plan, the content engagement, analytics, and the advertising. So let's start with game plan. Okay. So game plan or the strategy. So it's very important for us to not just create page. For example, I've started a business, and then I'll just create a page and then promote my products and services, etc., etc. But no, that should not be our practice when we are, for example, when we are having our businesses, or when we are having to use this platform, for example, to spread the message, or to even spread the gospel. As mentioned by the two speakers before, that we should be very intentional. We should have a human strategy, of course, in using the social media. So we have to ask these questions, these three questions. No, first, what are your goals? What do you want to achieve? Or why? So, for example, when you have when for example, if you want to spread, if you're a Christian who wants to spread or make the gospel viral, that's your goal. Make the gospel viral. That's your mission. If you're a startup business, my goal is to increase my sales using the Facebook page by promoting my services in Facebook page. We have to know our why. We have to know our purpose, because purpose gives a sense of direction para hindi tayo maligaw. I think it was mentioned before by by Jonah, our first speaker, para hindi tayo maligaw in whatever we are doing. Okay, so and then second, it was also emphasized by Yen kanina, who've talked about digital marketing. We have to know our audience. Who are your audience? Kanino ka ba nakikipag-usap? 'Di ba? Usually we have to know their age, gender, their interests, their pain points, and of course, knowing the right audience, it mas nalalaman natin kung ano yung kind of message that we are communicating them to. According to Seth Godin, one of the marketers then, a very popular marketer, that everyone is not your customer. Hindi pwedeng lahat kinakausap mo. You have to speak or to talk to specific people, so that when you create content, which later on I will be discussing, it will be very relevant to them as if you are speaking to them. So it's very important na after you know your goal, you have also to know your audience. Okay, and then what social media platform? Of course, it will depend on what type of audience you have. As discussed by Yen then kanina, there are different types of social media platforms that will be right depending on the audience, and of course depending on the product or services that you are promoting. Diba? For example, for Facebook, if you want to build your brand or to reach more audience, etc., TikTok would be a very good platform if your services or product are, for example, more on product demos. Kasi, or Instagram Reels, for example, if you are more on product demos, etc., or giving, for example, giving tips and advices, etc., TikTok would also be a very good platform. So, yun. In order to have an impact and to reach your audience, you have to choose the right platform for your brand, or for what purpose you are doing to use the social media. Okay, so the next slide, these are an actual example. Actually, just to give you a background, Positivity Tips is just a personal passion project of mine that have been created since 2017. It started with a blog. Actually, it's a blog where I tell stories on how God is faithful and great in my life. So it's a different story, and then different tips as well. Just daily, just reflections of some life reflections as well. And then we've created a page for that, and then that's it. So currently it's a Facebook page. So just to give you an example that that will be very understandable. So for my own page, I've also set a goal. So it's a very generic goal. So this is to show and communicate God's greatness and faithfulness through this platform, and to bring back the glory and praise to Him through the skills and talents that we have. So I write, for example, if I write stories, I'll be able to share to this platform. If usually for this page also, I sing worship song covers, etc., etc. And then I use the basic graphic design skills as well to to communicate my to help me achieve my goal in this kind of platform. So the next slide would be, who are your audience? So this is the audience that I've set for this. A group of young Filipinos aged 16 to 30s who always seek positivity, inspiration, and comfort in their daily lives. So pain points or the problems that I've observed is, of course, this especially during this pandemic, um, we lack motivation, wants to be comforted in the midst of the world's clutter, especially no nagka-pandemic, very cluttered yung minds on how to do this, how to be able to be ready for this, etc., etc., and the loneliness, stress, and anxiety. So through these pain points or the problems that I've seen with this audience, I'll be able to create a content that will be able to directly speak to them or directly address them. Okay, and then what social media platform I've used for this? Actually, I've focused mainly on, next slide, please, sorry. I focus mainly on Facebook page, of course, because actually I've tried to create also an Instagram page, but since I really want to focus more on the Filipinos, I think mas na-hit nung Facebook yung that kind of audience. So now that we have answered these questions, what are your goals, who are your audience, and what would be the right social media platform. Next would be the content creation or the content planning. So content is the fire. So as you usually see na nakuquote, content is king. Content is fire and social media is the gasoline. Okay, so kaya it's very important to know our audience. It's because we always have to answer this question, what's in it for them? Diba? Parang, it was also mentioned by Jonah in the first topic na we always have to make sure that we have to provide value. We have to educate our audience. We're not just posting because gusto ko lang mag-post or gusto ko lang magpa-impress, 'di ba? And it was also emphasized from the second topic na we should use the skills and the platforms that we have to create an impact. Okay, so for the content, after answering that, what's in it for them, or for example, how will be able to solve their problems? First, we have to identify your content topics. So what are the topics that will be relevant to your audience? For example, if you're an entrepreneur and you're selling food, what would be the content topics? For example, based on my experience, I've been an entrepreneur lang for half a year last year, 2020, and I've been cooking and selling pasta as well. So, for example, for that particular business, content topics, for example, if you're talking about pasta, parang facts about pasta, parang paano ba nagsimula yung pasta, etc., etc., and how to cook the right, for example, for the different types of pasta, parang how will you cook it rightly? Diba? Parang you have to, parang that's under the tips. Or parang, for example, if may natira kang pasta, how will you be able to store that? And then identify your content topics. And then, for example, may portion doon ng topics that you're posting photos of your product and services just to introduce what the business or what the brand is all about. And then after identifying your content topics, I will show you a sample after of the positive tips. So after that, determine the type of media that you will use. So would it either be photo, video? Are you sharing a blog post if you have a website? Or it would be just, and then marami pa, like if for photo, it would this be a one photo only, a single image only, or a carousel image, etc., etc. And then, since planning a content is very time consuming, this is one of the tips that I've learned as well. You also have to plan and schedule your content ahead. Kasi, for example, if palagi tayong maghahabol, for example, ay wala akong post ngayon, dapat everyday ako nagpo-post, ganito, etc., etc. We are often falling into the trap of parang ay tatamarin ka na lang kasi for example you are busy kasi hindi lang naman yan yung pinagkakaabalahan mo. For example, for business, hindi lang naman social media yung focus mo when you're in your business. You're also focusing on the other aspects of your business. If you are a leader who wants to build your personal brand, and then ano parang you want to communicate, or for example, you want to make the gospel viral, or you want to tell stories on how God has been great or faithful to you, etc., etc., you also have to plan and schedule your content ahead. Kasi in that way, we can be able to sustain our page. And if we're able to sustain the page or the social media that we are managing, or the social media that we've created, we can be able to achieve our end goal, which we have identified from the strategy or game plan that we've answered before. So there are a lot of planning and scheduling tools for social media. Some are free and some are paid. But those free tools can really help you a lot na rin, especially when you're scheduling your content. Okay, next slide. I'll be showing you on how I've crafted the content topics for the positivity tips so that you have an example on how to do it. Aside dun sa diniscuss ko kanina. So for positivity tips, these are the content topics. For example, for daily reflections. Daily reflections, for example, after I have a quiet time or after I have the time with the Lord, I usually share that in the page on what God has told me during that time or during that day. Verse, sharing Bible verses. And then positivity stories, it's I've featured different people, different Christians with that. So that's an additional content for the page. And then worship song covers, as I've mentioned before, and then blog posts for the written articles that I have, and then the shared posts from other pages that I've been also following. Okay, so next slide. When you already planned or plot your content, actually after you planned your content topics, depende sa'yo. Some are assigning, for example, every Monday, magpo-post ako ng ganito. But it really depends to you. For example, once a week, ganito lang yung content ko. May content ako once a week for video, etc., etc. So once you have planned your content, you have to set a consistent style for your content on how will it look like when they see your posts in the news feed, in the Instagram, etc. So you have to set your color palette, the font, logo placement, the filter, and etc. So, but if you're an existing brand as well for businesses, I think they have already set this, the kind of color palette. It should be consistent with the brand guidelines or with the brand guidelines of your business as well. And you have to find your voice and tone. So you have to set your voice and tone. So these are the questions. How do we want to make them feel? What are the how do we want to make them feel? For example, we want when they read my post, gusto ko ma-feel nila that they feel warm. They feel warm or parang positive vibes, etc. Or parang parang may conviction that they will be kumbaga pag when they read that call to action, parang they will be parang may desire kagad na gawin yung call to action, etc. And then the adjectives to describe you or your brand. For example, for positivity tips, the adjectives would be you are parang you are trustworthy, etc. You are someone na madaling kausap. You're a friend who will always be there to inspire, motivate, and help them. Kumbaga, parang very helpful yung tone. And of course, you also have to identify who do you want not to be. Who do you want not to be? So parang for example, if for businesses, ayoko mag-sound na hard sell, na palaging, for example, buy now, parang ganon. Yung parang ganong tone. And for example, for positivities, I don't want to sound that I'm very, very aggressive, etc. So those are for the content creation. So next slide. Okay, these are the content examples for the positivity tips. So I've shared the blog, what's great about faith, where I've shared my own story. And then these are the different verses that I've been sharing. And then the positivity stories, our first speaker has also been featured in positivity tips. So there are 4 set of questions. She shared her story with her relationship with God, her journey with God, etc., etc. And then Tagalog, kasi since I'm catering to Filipino, so there is a short, parang that's sort of the daily reflection. Parang this is a summary of lahat ng yung gagawin ay para siya'y purihin. And then the caption, there is a supporting verse for there. So hindi ko lang na-show dito. Okay. So next slide. Okay, after the game plan and then after the content creation, for example, you have already posted the post, scheduled your post. This is the third key pillar, which is the engagement. So with engagement, we are building relationships with our audience, and we are building a whole community, having the same interests, having the same beliefs, etc., etc. So it's very important when you are having a social media page, hindi lang nagtatapos dun sa posting, but you also have to monitor. Like for example, if there's someone who commented on the post, you have to reply. You have to be very engaging to that particular person. If he or she has particular questions, you have to respond them. And if he or she also message, that's also part of the engagement. So first is actually listening is part of the engagement. Whatever they're commenting on that particular post or in the social media page, when you listen or when you check or monitor those comments, you'll be able to know, parang mas nakikilala mo yung audience mo if you're able to listen to them. Diba? Parang if someone shared a comment there, na mas nakikilala mo. Parang kaibigan mo, when someone shared to you, mas nakikilala mo siya on how she speaks, on how she tells stories, etc. And then hindi lang hanggang listen, but also to in addition to listen, when we are listening to our audience, we are also able to adjust the content that we are planning and creating for them. Kasi mas nakilala natin sila, di ba? So responding, and then respond, which is responding to them, not being just passively listening to them, etc. And then the third is to involve them. Parang they have to feel that that they belong to that community. So one example for that, what I've done for positivity tips actually is, I've asked in one post, what is your favorite Bible verse? And there are hundreds of persons. Actually, this was 2 years ago. 100 people or 50 to 100 people who've commented their Bible verse, etc., etc. And then a favorite Bible verse. And then when I've posted that Bible verse, I actually tagged them in a post that, oh, your favorite Bible verse has been posted. Or actually, I think we are also messaging them that, oh, your favorite Bible verse have been have been posted, and they will be gladly sharing that to their post. So that's part of the engagement kasi you are involving them. Parang, oh, belong ako, parang ako yung, parang I will be very proud na, oh, my comment has been turned into a content, etc., etc. So that's part of engagement, and that's also part of the engagement. The Facebook groups, if you've mentioned, if you be kung ma-observe mo, sorry, that's a whole community of having the same interest, and then if you will notice all their questions, etc., etc., you'll also be able to know ano yung mga pain points nila. That's also a good observation as well sa Facebook groups to know your audience as well. That's why for businesses, they are encouraged to join the different Facebook groups that are related to their niche, so that they will be able to know more about their audience, their pain points, and then yun. So that's engagement, building relationships and building community. Okay. Next slide. So analytics. So hindi lang tayo hanggang goals, hanggang posts, hanggang responding to the comments, engaging with our audience, but we also have to have a data analysis or the social media analysis on how our social media posts or social media page is performing. Is it working? So how do you know kung ano yung i-check mo? You always have to go back to your goals. For example, if my goal is to engage with the community, for example, that's a very general goal, then I will check in that particular insights of that particular page on what is the engagement rate for that particular post. Just to give you example, for positivity tips, what I've been checking as well is not only the reach, but of course the engagement rate. So for example, if I've noticed that this post has a higher engagement rate versus versus sa ibang posts, then then I'll be able to conclude that this content is working, or we should or I'll continue posting this kind of content because it has an impact to them. It is very relatable to them. It is very relevant to them. Diba? And then you'll observe as time goes by that if you're checking your data, you're checking your insights, you'll be able to know na, oh, it's not working. This post is not working. Oh, this post have, for example, for this post have generated many leads. Maraming nag-message sa akin na, oh, how to be ganito. How can I be able to reach you? I want to be like you, or something like that. So, as mentioned before, as based sa mga samples ko, your social media analytics guide your content decisions. But it is a very long-term process kasi hindi lang porket nag-check ka nung nakaraang linggo, it will be the same for the different weeks, different months. So you always have to check, to consistently check, because aside sa nagbabago yung algorithm, nagbabago din yung behavior ng mga tao. So you always have to check. Okay, so next slide. Last but not the least, one of the core key pillars of social media marketing is advertising. So if you have a budget to grow your social media ad or social media page, this will allow you to reach to wider audience. Yes. So if you have a budget, kasi for example, if for example for businesses, it's a very new business and I want to reach more audience. I want to reach, for example, I'm having a product and I want to reach audience not only here in Iloilo but other provinces as well. Advertising is an easy is one of the the one that will really help you achieve that goal. Okay. So but it varies. It doesn't mean that if you have the budget, your ad will be very effective na. there are many different factors, like your audience, as we always emphasize, your audience, the kind of content that you have, and of course, the kind of content that you have, and of course the way you're writing your captions and how you will be able to drive them to that goal that you've set. Okay, so for the 5 core key pillars, the game plan or the strategy, the content planning or creation, the ano ba yung third? Sorry, the engagement. Fourth is the analytics, and fifth is the advertising. So these are the key takeaways about the social media marketing. Okay, thank you for flashing that. So okay, thank you. So for the key takeaways, social media marketing is a little bit of science. Why? It's because of the endless testings and experiments. What might work, for example, last year, might not work this year. Diba? What might not work last year might work this year. So that's that actually it's not only in the social media marketing. It's in actually it's in a marketing as a general when you're as a marketer. So we sorry. So yun nga, now we always have, as I've mentioned in the analytics, you always have to always test experiments what may work. For example, this content works because maganda yung graphics. How about i-test ko kaya dun sa susunod na ganito yung graphics but maganda yung caption? Para at least you'll be able to know na ay mas gusto nila yung short caption, or ay mas gusto nila yata yung ganitong image, or ay mas nag-work sa kanila yung video because it helps them a lot. So if you're in a social media marketing, you also have to be very flexible. And yun nga, for example, if you've planned this, parang you also have to be flexible to change this because there are lots of trends, etc., etc. Okay, for the second key takeaway, next slide. Okay, go beyond the vanity metrics. So what do we mean by the vanity metrics? That's the number of likes, followers, number of page views, number of the audience that you have reached, because it do not always equate to social media success. Okay, kasi I think kasi based on my experience as a social media manager, most of the clients that I've been taking or I've been serving as well, parang they're often trapped na, uy, I want to increase my followers. I want to increase the number of likes of my page. First, it's hindi siya agad-agad. Porket na kumuha ng social media manager, pwede siya mag-increase kaagad ng followers. No? It takes a lot of effort. As discussed din kanina ni Yen, na parang mag-uumpisa muna yun sa soil hanggang sa ma-cultivate, hanggang sa mag-grow. Hindi yung pagtanim mo kagad, mag-grow kagad. It's also in the social media marketing. And of course, for example, one great example for that is you have a lot or you have a high number of followers. Pero, big question with that is are those followers are your right audience? Ba? Kasi kaya I'm speaking for experience because I've mentioned before for the food business that I'm having, we only have I think 500 likes. We are only serving the Iloilo page, but and then the engagement rate for the post is not that high, but we are receiving daily messages, daily orders that they want to order pasta, etc., etc. So it doesn't mean that if you have a high number of likes and followers, you can have a high number of sales as well. It really depends. It really depends on the brand. It really depends. But I have to disclaim here that it do not always equate to social media success. Okay, but of course, there are some brands that needs number of likes and followers, for example. But of course, yun nga, you always have to check if you're having an organic or parang genuine community of those followers according to the right audience that you want, or if you are really talking to your real audience. Kasi, of course, uso din naman sa social media that they buy likes, that they buy followers because pag nakita na, uy, 3,000 followers, it's very impressive for that. But yun nga, as Christians as well, we also have to take account with that, and yun nga, sino ba yung niloloko natin in that, for that reason. And then lastly, okay, last key takeaway, yun, don't use social media to impress people. Use it to impact people. We have given the opportunity for this kind of tools. We have given the opportunity to access internet, but hindi ibinigay ng Panginoon yung opportunity na yun just to waste it, or para lang just to impress people na, oy, nakapagbakasyon ako sa ganito, ay, I'm eating this kind of food, etc., etc. But walang masama doon. But of course, we have to use it to impact people, hindi para mang-away ng mga tao, etc., etc. Because we have to be honest with ourselves that that social media is one of the sources of toxicity right now, diba? So instead of using it for something that might not be good for the community, that might not help the community, let us use it to impact people. So if you're a leader who wants to make the gospel viral, to tell stories of God's greatness and faithfulness in your life, it would be a great avenue to use it to tell your story that will be able to inspire other people, and that people that you've inspired might be able to inspire people until you've brought that, until they'll be able to know the God's greatness. So yes, so that's the 3 key takeaways. So I'll be ending this talk with a verse. So let no corrupting talk come out of your mouths, but only such as is good for building up, as fits the occasion, that it may give grace to those who hear. So Ephesians chapter 4, verse 29. So let's use the digital marketing and the social media as a general to make a difference, to serve the community, to serve God purposefully. So yun, that's it. I hope that you've learned a lot with the social media. I hope that you've learned a lot with the different things that I've discussed about social media marketing. So thank you very much for your time tonight, and I hope makakatulog kayo ng mabuti because of the things that you are learning.